Goon cartoons!
Wild Cartoon Kingdom was an animation magazine published from 1993 to 1994 by Larry Flynt Publications. The magazine was created by Film Threat founder Chris Gore. It was edited by a number of people during its run, including John Kay of Ren and Stimpy and Spumco fame. The magazine lasted 5 issues, and sadly, after the 5th issue, it was canceled by LFP. Hey everybody, Frank Forte here, veteran of the comic book industry, animation, and film and TV, doing comics, storyboards, concept, all that fun stuff. I've just been going through my collection of books, comics, and magazines, and I found these little treasures, Wild Cartoon Kingdom. I used to collect these in the 90s when I was in college and just checking out animation. These things are really great. This is issue 3, featuring Beavis and Butthead. Illustration by Glenn Barr, who is a pretty famous fine artist these days, but he did work on Ren and Stimpy and did a bunch of comic books back in the 90s. We have Beavis and Butthead, Schoolhouse Rock, The Fantastic Four, stop motion animation, Ren and Stimpy news, John Kay interviews Mike Judge. I mean, what more could you want, right? Open up to the front page. Well, this words suck. Beavis and Butthead was just really huge back in the day when they came out. I mean, everybody just really loved that show. And see, as you have here, Kitty Cartoon News, Wild Cartoon Kingdom 3D, Laughing in Their Way to the Bank, Centerfold, Schoolhouse Rock, looking at vintage 1964 Fantastic Four stuff, Cartoon Review. I mean, just great for an animation fan. This is just a little bit of everything, modern, 80s, 60s. Again, Editor-in-Chief Chris Gore from Film Threat. First page here again, we are talking about Ren and Stimpy. Season 3 finally comes out. Again, it was late. I think that was a Games episode, Games Studios season, but, you know, written and started out by John Kay. So a lot of coverage of Ren and Stimpy in these magazines. And here we have a breakdown of the season, who wrote it. A lot of these were started with John Kay, Richard Purcell, and Jim Smith and all these guys, and then finished over there at Games. But just a little rundown of the episodes. You know, the magazine just had a lot of cool stuff. Like if you were into vintage 60s, 70s cartoons, they were always calling out like Rocky and Bullwinkle. Look at Hanna-Barbera Talent Search, Warner Brothers, you know, looking for shorts. Like it was just, you know, a great way to, like, if you were a budding animator or artist, you know, you could find work here. You know, looking at these old Popeyes, I mean, Plot to Kill Cartoons breaks on. I mean, this is like, you know, there was always this talk of like censoring cartoons and destroying animation, and really got people fired up. Cool, Spike and Mike. Yeah, that's Spike and Mike were huge in the 90s at colleges, and you always wanted to see their sick and twisted animation and their regular festival of animation. There were 2 of them that went around, and it was just pretty cool to see that in a college full of stoned out college kids. You got their letters page, people writing in, saying how much they love it. I think this is an interview with Shaggy or something. I don't know. And then this is a cool interview on, if you didn't know, you know, the beginnings of stop motion animation in Hollywood. And there were a lot of people that did stop motion and puppetry. And this is kind of the history of, you know, how it started in the early teens, 1890s, early 20s. Ray Harryhausen doing the stop motion, and George Pal Puppetoon was a big guy who I you know, found out a lot about George Pal just from reading this kind of stuff. And then when you're looking like, oh, stop motion, like they're replacing heads, like you looked at this and go, oh, that's how they did it. So it was cool to just look through this stuff and see just the love of the art form. And like, you know, to go through and put down like the George Pal complete filmography here, like you got to be a hardcore, you know, stop motion fan for that. So Bob Baker Puppetoon, Bob Baker Theater is still here in LA. And you can watch puppetry and they show stop motion stuff there. It is pretty cool. So just a little history of the puppet show and George Pal, stop motion, early stop motion. So it is cool to like look through this stuff. Great article on Ren and Stimpy. You have John Kay and Mike Judge, two of the biggest names in animation at the time, talking about, you know, their craft and their form. So this is really cool. Just looking at this limited animation and just, you know, people like Mike Judge just went and did it their own way. And there was a lot of that going on in the 90s. Talks about the beginning of, you know, how he started and like how he self-made all these cartoons and shot them himself. It was pretty cool. There's early issues of Wild Cartoon Kingdom. There's number 2. I'll be going over that one as soon as I dig it up. Beavis and Butthead Lookalike Contest. Schnookums and Meat. Yeah, that was a Disney cartoon that doesn't get much attention, but it is kind of like their version of Ren and Stimpy. There's the Pin-Up Wild Cartoon Kingdom by Glenn Barr. Very cool. I don't know if that was ever used in a cartoon. I think it was just used for this, but definitely a cool image. Yeah, there's Schnookums and Meat. That was definitely Disney's version of doing a Ren and Stimpy, I think. Schoolhouse Rock. You know, growing up in the 80s, I always watched Schoolhouse Rock, so it's cool to kind of see the genesis of it and the history of this cartoon that, you know, I loved, and I learned a lot about even politics and how the government worked just by watching those songs. But yeah, it talks about who made them, who the animators were, and he got the lyrics and everything. Very cool, in-depth article. Schoolhouse Rock Live, some other stuff, how they're keeping it going, interesting. And then this article's cool. It's a history of the Fantastic Four on TV. Now, people probably forgot about the early 1960s Fantastic Four, but they had another one, I think in the 80s, where they took out the Human Torch and replaced him with Herbie, and then they had this thing ring, do your thing, where this guy turned into the thing with a ring. I thought that show was pretty stupid, but you know, nonetheless, it was there. But the one from the 1960s was really cool because Alex Toth did a lot of the designs, and this is kind of cool where they talk about the genesis of it. And yeah, I didn't really know. I knew Alex Toth was a comic artist, but I didn't really know the amount of animation work he did. And this magazine was kind of like how you found out about this stuff. And you saw these model sheets and you're like, oh, what are these? Oh, model sheets. Right. Every animated show needs these designs done. You kind of learned how cartoons were made. Cool episode guide of everything they've done. And you can now find these in PDFs, this Alex Toth designs, but back then, you know, there were no PDFs. You had to like find a Xerox copy of this. And these are just great because I mean, Alex Toth was basically a comic book artist at heart. So looking at these drawings, you're like, it's a little bit Kirby. It's just, but Toth was his own person, and it had his own style, but yeah, it was just great. Yeah, ZZ123, I guess this is an early version of Herbie, which they brought out later. ZZ123. Then a little article about Elmo the Artvark, which is like an early cartoon from, I think, the 30s, and then Disney bought it. I forget the exact history, but they kind of do a tribute of it, and I think he was like an early vaudeville thing or something like that. There's a long history of Elmo. I think it's in like the public domain or something because it's so old. But, you know, they would always go back in this magazine and find these old cartoons and animation and just kind of, you know, talk about them. Milton Knight collection. I think that's Milton Knight. But yeah, just like, you know, the history of this cartoon character and where he is now. And then, you know, they were always doing these cartoon reviews. So they would review, you know, the Animaniacs or old films or DVD. So it was just kind of like, this is how you found out about stuff. Cartoons the Time Forgot, a Byworks collection. I think I had that on videotape, VHS. Clutch Cargo collection was coming out. Space Angel, which is another thing that was designed by Alex Toth. And yeah, they called that the Synchrovox, where they didn't want to lip sync and they just used like videos of mouths, which is pretty cool. Anime was hugely popular then. Robot Carnival, that was in collection. Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, all this stuff was great. And then, of course, you know, looking into Wallace and Gromit and the stop motion coming out of, you know, England, and then, you know, paying tribute to comic books at the time. Just a really cool magazine. I mean, these guys loved old animation. There's some zines. I think these are old zines. I don't know what this is. Flake, the Nostalgia magazine. This looks like an old zine or something. Animation magazine going strong. And, yeah, music soundtracks. Then looking at the other stuff they were putting out. Film Threat, video games, rap pages. Just a lot of cool stuff on the stands. Tribute to Popeye. And then, yeah, looking at Pixar was just getting started, I guess, right? So these, yeah, it looks like these were the world's greatest animation. I think this was like Luxo Jr. 1986. Sorry, that was back then. Tin Toy was 1988. So it wasn't too, you know, it was pretty recent. So anyway, that's it. That's Wild Cartoon Kingdom, number 3, published by Larry Flynt Productions and edited by Chris Gore. Again, I'm Frank Forte. You could find me on social at Frank Forte Art, frankforte.com. And to view my comic books, asylumpress.com is my comic book publishing company. You can find a lot of back issues there, Vampire Versus, Fearless Dawn, Warlash, and Asylum Press is on all social medias, but definitely check us out and support the indie comic scene. We're also on Kickstarter. You can find us there too. Okay, thanks, guys. Hey everyone, you can check me out on the web at frankforte.com. I have a store there where I sell all sorts of merchandise, artwork, sketches, comic books, enamel pins, stickers, all sorts of cool stuff. You can find me on social media, Frank Forte Art on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and even update Blogger sometimes, but check me out if you want to buy t-shirts and stuff. I have all that stuff on Threadless, Society 6, and Spring, so you can find other types of merch there. Thanks for watching, and subscribe. Thank you.
Goon Cartoons! Thanks for watching our videos, and remember to subscribe for more great cartoons. And be sure to ring the bell to be notified every time we upload a new video. And if you liked that last cartoon, check out these other great cartoons. Go ahead, click one. Go for it. Click it.